We're back for another Lunar Talk segment, and this episode is on the new moon in Taurus, happening on May 16th, 2026, on the East Coast time, 4:01 p.m. So I'm really excited about this. This is the final lunation in the Taurus season. The beautiful thing about this lunation, along with the full moon that happened 2 weeks ago, is that Uranus is no longer present during these lunations. It's out of the conversation. So with the themes of our Taurus, Scorpio houses, there's less surprises, there's less revolutions, there's less changes. It's more in line with that stability that the Scorpio and Taurus zodiac brings in our life. Before we dive into the actual chart, I just want to introduce myself to those who do not know me. My name is Adriana. I am a self-taught astrologer. I've worked on the traditional astrology side of things for the last 7 years, but prior to that, I've always had my toes dipped into the interest of astrology. I'm currently getting certified, so my goal with these episodes is to just talk about astrology as is and try to bridge an understanding for those who may not know astrology, who may not study it, but want to learn more about what's actually going on. So I hope to bring an easy to understand segment to the podcast, and that's what this Lunar Talks segment is really all about. At the time that I'm recording, we are approaching a Mercury cazimi in the sign of Taurus. So it's all kind of leading up to this new moon, and it's really exciting. Following astrology is a great way of applying a new tool in your day-to-day life. So let's just jump into it, right? Okay, so we have the chart for the lunation happening again May 16th at 4:01 p.m. Eastern Time. The new moon is right over here in Taurus at 25 degrees and 57 minutes. So the new moon is co-present with Mercury within 3 degrees. We are just coming away from a Mercury cazimi. It's still very close to the sun now with the moon, and this lunation is just supporting the Mercury cazimi that is happening. It's that Jupiter has made a sextile to both the sun and Mercury in the same week. So there's this supportive mental process that's happening within our Taurus segment, and this supportive conversation that Jupiter has been kind of like hugging inwards is now in a place where we can manifest. We can plant the seed and really believe in the support and the process of growing whatever it is that we are intending for ourselves. So Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Taurus brings in the element of values and the things that we appreciate. It's the first earth sign, and coming after Aries, so it tells us to slow down and just be present and take notice of everything in front of you. Take notice of what you have, how important it is to sit down and eat a hot meal and support yourself after all that running and go of Aries. So we're really coming down now. It's the climax of this Aries season, and what April really was about is finally starting to simmer down. But coming back to the new moon in Taurus, Taurus is now out of the conversation with Uranus. Uranus is all done with uprooting Taurus. And what makes this new moon so special is that we can now actually believe that the seeds that we're planting are going to take root and really stay for the long run. So what we are hoping to grow has the potential to last a while and really be like not just something that we want out of thin air. It has been something that has been developing over time and has been required to be refined and and recalibrated and redone. Uranus is not there to just like mess things up and switch things up just for funsies. Uranus does that so that we can really see and experience the change that is needed for us to propel into a better functioning future. So Uranus has done quite some damage, but now that it's not there, we can actually now see like the ways in which we've tried to assess our values, the ways in which we've tried to establish some stability that really just wasn't going to work because Uranus was there saying like, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. It's now resting in the wisdom of these last 7 years. This new moon is now in a very supportive place because Jupiter has kind of said, hey, you're done with that. You are here to grow. Here is this surplus of water for that seed that you're about to grow, because you are fully supported now. Jupiter has touched on the sun this week leading up to the new moon, but also has touched on the Mercury that is also present with this new moon. And the Mercury is about our communication and our ways of traveling. It's looking at it from like the solar system perspective. Mercury is the first planet from the sun. So it's if we apply this symbolically, Mercury is the first extension of ourselves, the sun being our identity and Mercury being how we create this world through our identity. So Mercury is part of this conversation. And if you are wondering how to manifest and plant seeds or such, you can quite literally work with soil and a seed. But if you're not a green thumb, that's totally fine. You can just work with some material. I would lean into the Taurus and Scorpio axis themes of working with the things that you own. And this may be a good time to release some old stuff, especially stuff that you've accumulated in the last 7 years, because that was tied into the whole Uranus being part of the conversation. You can work with things like your clothes, or you can work with the decor. Just work through your makeup if you wear that. But if you don't want to actually do any spell work or like hands-on type of manifesting, you can absolutely work this into a prayer. You can work this into a journal, a journaling experience. There are ways in which you can express yourself, and I think the Mercury aspect of all of this is just supporting an expressive way of setting an intention. So let's see what's going on with Venus. The new moon is ruled by Venus. The way that you're going to experience this darkness of going within. So the new moon is when like the moon is not out, or well, it's not visible. I mean, it's always out. It's not visible. So at night on a new moon, it's the darkest that the night sky is in a lunar calendar. And going back in time, before lampposts or a thing, the new moon nights were spent inwards because there's no light that's guiding you out through the night. And looking at Venus, it is making an aspect over here to Mars. This is a supportive aspect. However, and Mars is at home in Aries, and Venus is in a Mercury sign, with Mercury part of the new moon conversation. So the elements of all that expression, those thoughts, those words, creating your world through words kind of thing, it's all tied into the same thing. And coming from this perspective with Mars in the conversation, Mars is kind of saying like, go, 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 like just keep going. Perhaps you don't know what to say. Perhaps you have a lot to say. Whatever it is, just keep going. It kind of makes me think of that, this advice that I got in high school. and it was basically just quantity over quality. So get as much as you can down on paper before you start revising and reworking it. And Gemini is a mutable sign, so it has a tendency to fluctuate and to change and adjust. So as you work on these words, they may feel scattered or kind of all over the place. And Mars is just supporting, like, just don't worry about organizing it. Just put that energy outwards. If you're writing this all down, like, put as much information as you can down. If you're absorbing this information, absorb as much as you can and be concrete about it. For these words to really take root, you have to apply action to it. And I recently had an experience of journaling a type of intention. I'm working through like a 7-week manifesting thing, and I won't get into the details because it's just something that I want to see how it plays out before I start talking about it. But there was one practice in particular that really challenged me, and it makes me think of this lunation. But I had to pick out like 5 to 10 words of the type of values that I am looking for in a partnership, whether it's like my business or through a romantic relationship. And so I picked out these values, and then I had to develop a full statement of why I chose these values. And I'm looking for this because I want X, Y, and Z. But like full sentence, full thought. And then from there, I had to reword it in that I was looking for that within myself and promising myself that I would present these values and experience these values through my own actions. And then I had to commit to writing this promise 10 times, and I had chose seven values. So just imagine 70 sentences and just committing to that. So that could be your new moon intention practice. But that's something that I did recently, and I feel like this Venus sextile Mars or Mars sextile Venus is similar to that, where don't worry about how overwhelming the information is because of that Gemini being so mutable and so flexible. And now that Uranus is in Gemini, you might start out learning this one lesson, but then it just brings in a different piece of information from out of your peripheral. So rooting all of that down into something that's concrete and tangible is that Taurus aspect. So the most important part of this new moon experience is not just the information download, but it is putting that into something that is sustainable and something that you can access to. I wouldn't even look at it being digitized because of the Uranus in Gemini. I would concentrate on going back to your roots, going to pen and paper for something like this. If you did want to, digitize it, you can print it, but, find a way to get it into something that you can hold within your hands. So the new moon in Taurus is now free of that Gemini under the sun and the moon axis, but it is for this lunation in particular, it is still involving Uranus, just because the ruler of the new moon is co-present with Uranus. So she's still there, but I do very much like this new moon for our Taurus and Scorpio houses. I noticed that after the full moon in Scorpio that there has been a lot of endings appearing. The full moons bring like visibility, and since Uranus was no longer in that axis, all of these stories causing an ending have been appearing. For me, I've noticed it with a lot of people who are leaving jobs for reasons that have just like surfaced under like deep waters, or whether it was like, in a public sphere or in a personal sphere. I have seen a lot of bubbling of departures when it comes to career. And the Taurus and Scorpio, for example, I have the new moon here with Aries rising. And if we were to look at houses, the Taurus and Scorpio belong to the personal finances and the finances shared with others. So lots of themes relating to jobs are coming up with this lunation season under the Taurus-Scorpio axis. That's something that I've noticed. I've also noticed a lot of people expressing values with so much, like there's a lot of depth behind their expression. And that would be now because of all these years where we have just experienced a change in our resources with Taurus, and now catching like that big breath of fresh air with Uranus out of the conversation, we can now like fully vocalize and express our values without the fear of things changing so suddenly or so drastically. We can now just express this with a little more sense of groundedness behind our voice and our thoughts. It's really a big season of change, and it's one of the first of many of this year that we're going to experience these types of changes. And this one's a good one. It's a breath of fresh air, but with that comes a lot of things coming up to the surface. And yeah, that's the new moon happening here. So if you are a Taurus or a Scorpio, congratulations, you have survived the Uranus transit fully and completely, and we have now established our first set of new moon and full moons in your axis without Uranus co-present in the conversation. If you are a Taurus or a Scorpio, let me know how these lunations have come about for you. If you feel that sense of relief, may not have been easy, but it is going to get a little bit easier to be yourself and just root down somewhere or someplace or somehow and just stick with it. And if you're on the East Coast side, the actual chart of the lunation has Libra rising, which makes Venus the ascendant ruler. And it further emphasizes that Venus sextile Mars situation of just quantity over quality for now, and getting that concrete through the new moon Taurus. Just push yourself out there. If you're writing a book, just write. Don't worry about organizing it. If you are learning something, just take in the information. Make sure you take your notes, get it from the computer to paper, back things up, especially if you have to work through the computer. You just never know with Uranus. That's kind of the mantra with Uranus. You just never know. And those are my tips for this new moon. I'm excited for that experience. I'll be traveling to Florida, and we'll be doing things related to the Taurus and Scorpio axis in my own chart. Let me know what you are doing for the new moon, and we'll talk to each other next time. See ya.